Let me know when you want to get started, Julia.
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, okay. We have any other people joining right now?
No, we've got some trickling in, but we've got everyone admitted that has joined so far.
Great, okay.
Oh, we've
Well-
got Marco joining.
Oh, good, we'll wait for Marco.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. We appreciate you being here. We've got a good agenda. Today we'll be focused on the EPA Clean Ports Grant. The grants department has been really busy working on RAISE and the Port Infrastructure Development Program. Those have been mostly focused on rail projects at the port. But for the EPA grant, we're looking at additional zero emission equipment and other things. So we really wanted to get your feedback today on what our ask is going to be for EPA Clean Ports. And so later on in the presentation, we're going to ask you for some feedback after we kind of go over what we've scoped out so far, at least just initially. We did want to give some brief port updates.
Jeff, did we want to do the roll call real quick?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do
Okay.
that. Yeah, thanks.
No problem. Okay, welcome to the meeting, everybody. So I'd like to remind everyone that it is being recorded, and we do ask that you please rename your Zoom name to your full name and the organization you're with. And then if you're a resident, you could put the letter R. For roll call, I'm going to go down the list as it appears on my screen. And then when I call on you, if you can please just unmute and say which organization you're with. At the end, I will be introducing attendees from the Port of Stockton. Okay, so first up, looks like we have Kara.
Hi, I'm Kara Dewhurst, and I'm with Anchor QEA.
Thank you, welcome. And Jared.
Good afternoon, Jared Kupchak with Nevada Cement.
Welcome, Jared. And next we have Mary Elizabeth.
Mary Elizabeth, resident.
Welcome, hi Mary. And then we have Chuck.
Chuck DeYoung with H.J. Baker.
Welcome. And then Margot.
Hi, I'm Margot Prouse. I'm a resident and sit on the CSC steering committee for AB 617.
Hi, Margot.
Hi.
Hi. And then Alex.
Hi, Alex Vanderhoff with Momentum.
Thank you. And Davis.
Hi all, this is Davis Harper with Restore the Delta.
Welcome, Davis. And Hector.
Hello, Hector Olivares with Catholic Charities.
Welcome. And Jeff Robbins.
Hi, Jeff Robbins with Nevada Cement Company.
Welcome. And just one moment. I'm going to admit Douglas real quick. Okay, and then Kyle.
Oh, hey, everybody. This is Kyle Goff with the California Air Resources Board.
Hi, Kyle. Welcome. And then we have Renee.
Renee Moylan with Momentum.
Welcome. And then Douglas. Hi, Douglas. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Doug Vigil. I'm on the San Joaquin Board of Education, Area 3, and I'm here in a part of the 76 committee subcommittee. So I'm heavily involved with different boards. I'm very busy in the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Doug. And then I will. Okay, and then from the Port of Stockton, we have Commissioner Chair Treza. Then we have Commissioner David Atwater, Port Director Kirk DeJesus, Rhonda Nelson, which is our Director of Real Estate and Port Development, Jeff Wingfield, Deputy Port Director of Regulatory and Public Affairs, Daniel Orozco, our Grants Management Specialist, and Karen Romero and myself. And I apologize if I missed anybody. I don't think I did. But with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jeff, to go over the updates.
Great, thank you. And welcome again, everybody. Okay, as I mentioned, yes, we're going to be focused on the EPA Clean Ports Grant. But one of the few things I did want to discuss, and I think most of you attended the Stockton AB 617 CSC meeting that was held at the port just recently. I thought that was a really good opportunity for folks to come out. We did a nice tour. And I know that if some of you, I know I make this standing offer every time, but if you have not been on a tour, please come out. We may as we start holding more in-person meetings, we may end up having some of these meetings at the port. I think it means a lot to have you out to see kind of some of the progress that we're making out there. One of the other things that we just recently completed was our Green Marine certification, recertification. So we had our verifier come out, spent the day going over all of our programs, and we did reach a few more levels, higher levels, and a few of the key performance indicators, which we're very happy with. I'm sure some of you others will be out at Victory Park for Earth Day Festival on April 21st. We will be out there with a booth as well. So please come by and say hi if you're just attending or if you do have a booth out there. We're really trying to push hard for more education, and we've met with a bunch of the STEM teachers in the region. We've had a lot of students come out. We're trying to do more to help, provide and have a pathway for some of our youth to come out to the port to get an idea of what we do and what we're looking for as far as employees in the future. And so to carry on with that, we're going to have Western Ranch High will tour. Their global logistics students will be out at the port on April 23rd. We also did go over to Washington Elementary just recently to do an OWL presentation. But through that, we also talk about the importance of ports and what we do, and try to get them stimulated about logistics. And it was one of the best opportunities we had, and the students were amazing. They dissected all the OWL pellets, and they did a great job, and they were so engaged. It was really, really fun and uplifting. And then lastly, we have, we did have our cleanup day, our coastal cleanup day scheduled for last Saturday. With the poor weather, we postponed it to April 27th, which I'm glad we did. It would have been a mess out there. But so we hope that you all can join and pass on this information to get as many people as possible to come out and join us there. Were there any other updates?
Well, we did have Commissioner Margaret Stevens join, and also SB from the Executive Director from Environmental Justice Coalition for Water just joined the call.
Wonderful, great. I think I talked last time about we hosted the Trucking with Clean Fuels conference. That was a really big success, and I'm hopeful that we can do other events like that in the future. But always reach out to if you guys have other events that you're attending or think that report would benefit from. We really appreciate having that information. So I will now turn it over to Daniel Orozco, who is our grants coordinator, grants management coordinator, who will kind of walk us through what the EPA Clean Ports Grant Program is, and then we'll dive into it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And as Jeff mentioned, recently we've been heavy on grants for infrastructure with RAISE and PIDP. But this program, the EPA Clean Ports Program, is something that's been on our radar since last year. And they recently came out with their solicitation in March. that's due in late May. And so we just wanted to converse with the community to see what their feedback is, see if they have any suggestions. But before we go through that, I don't know if anyone here has seen the solicitation or knows about it. So we'll just give you a brief overview of what we're looking to do, and then what the pieces of equipment we're looking for. And then Renee and Alex from Momentum will help guide through some of the more specific goals that the port is going to go through. So the Clean Ports program comes from the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, with $3 billion to fund zero emission port equipment and infrastructure, as well as climate and air quality planning in the US. So there's two separate programs within this. There's the zero emission equipment, and then there's zero emission planning. For the Port of Stockton, we'll be going for the equipment, which is going to be about $2.79 billion. And so this program is really, really focused on providing a springboard for US ports to really incentivize the zero emission equipment and lower emissions around the United States. And so right now, currently, the program is looking to fund between $5 million and $500 million projects. There is two tiers. The first tier is for $5 to $150 million, and then the second tier is from $150 million to $500 million. For the first tier, the EPA is looking to award around 22 to 50 projects, and then for the $500 million tier, they're looking to fund for 5 to 7 different projects around the United States. For the Port of Stockton, we're looking for the tier where we have the most chance, which is tier B, and it has its advantages for us due to us being a small port and being in a non-attainment area. So you can go to the next slide, Julia. So the program itself covers a variety of different equipment. With the Port of Stockton, we're really going to focus more on the cargo handling equipment, such as forklifts and cranes. We're really trying to target drayage trucks that come into the port. We've been trying our best to work with tenants and other organizations that work around the port, as well as locomotives and rail car movers. So some of our tenants, use rail car movers. We are trying to work with one of our bigger tenants, Stockton Soda, as well, to get some other equipment out there. And along with that, we're looking for charging stations and solar and battery storage. As we are trying to power all this equipment, we don't want to bring in emissions. We want to be as clean as possible. And so we're definitely looking into plans to really build out our infrastructure. And thankfully, this program also identifies that need. So we're definitely going to go for it. And then lastly, the EPA really wants the community to be involved, and they want to have a say in what's going on in these projects. And so they're very happy to fund, project-specific public engagement, safety planning, as well as workforce training. Jeff, is there anything else you want to add to that? You're on mute, Jeff.
Thank you. So we have been working pretty diligently on some additional workforce development opportunities, and it just kind of came up the other day that maybe this grant could help fund some of that. One of the things we're talking about is a global logistics and trade program at the port, where we could have juniors and seniors in high school come in, and we could do presentations, throughout a 13-week program, and they could hopefully get high school credit for participating in this program. So we've got a bunch of things we're working on. We're also working on, I think a lot of you have heard me talk about the need for folks in the area to be able to service some of the zero emission equipment that we have, because right now we're being serviced out of Southern California. And it really doesn't make sense for somebody to have to drive all the way up to just clear a computer code or do simple maintenance on this equipment when we could have qualified people right here in Stockton. So that's what we're looking at. And so while we're working on these anyway, we think that potentially this grant could help us bring some additional funding to support the programs. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And then next slide to
So Hector has a comment of, would the EV drayage trucks be a re-grant to tenants of the port? Potentially it could, they could, Hector. I have sent this out to all of our tenants. We have not had a lot of interest on the drayage truck side. We are working with a few tenants, and Renee will get into that a little bit, who work between, they do drayage between Oakland and Stockton. And so we're trying to work directly with some of the trucking companies. The tenants, even at the port, a lot of them don't own their own trucks. So we're relying on them to pass it on to their trucking companies. And we haven't had a ton of traction so far.
okay, sounds great. And then yeah, Renee will guide us through some of the goals that we have as we go into it and how it ties into our clean air plan as well as our electrification blueprint, since she has worked on both of those. So we'll pass it on to you, Renee.
Great, thank you, Daniel. So this grant opportunity is really a tremendous opportunity to start implementing many of the strategies that this group helped to put together when we developed the Clean Air Plan and the electrification blueprint. Lots of strategies were laid out in these two plans. Those plans were developed in close partnership with many of the community groups and the other groups that are on this call. And so the port is really looking to use these federal EPA funds to put these plans into action. Next slide, please. Next slide. Am I frozen?
Oh, I
You
did
might
go to
be.
I did go to the next slide here.
Oh,
We'll
you
go back.
did. Okay, I'm sorry.
They look
They
similar.
They look so similar. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
So in terms of what that looks like, putting these plans into action, Daniel mentioned, Jeff mentioned, really the focus on cargo handling equipment. Right now, the port is at 40% electric zero emissions cargo handling equipment, which is really, really tremendous for any port in the country. The port is looking to request funds for 60 electric forklifts. That would bring the port up to 90% zero emissions equipment, which would be a huge transformation. Also, the accompanying charging stations in order to accommodate that zero emissions equipment, battery storage and solar panels to help offset some of that increase in energy demand. And then the other big piece of this project that the port is interested in is really helping to increase the engagement with the zero emission drayage trucks. And we can have some discussion around what that looks like. And hopefully there's some ideas that start getting percolated at this meeting. And then elevating community voices and engagement opportunities. And the other thought is to support the development of regional zero emission freight corridors between the Port of Stockton and the Port of Oakland. This is something that the EPA is very interested in. The Department of Energy has identified high priority freight corridors for zero emissions investment. And many of those high priority corridors are between Stockton and Oakland. And so we're also talking about this idea of a partnership between the two ports to make sure that the trucks running along those freight corridors are zero emissions. And we want to have some discussion around that. Next slide. Okay, so we have a lot of questions that we want to pose to this group. And I think what I'll do is just kind of run through them But then really open it up for discussion and don't feel obligated to answer these questions. Maybe there's questions that we haven't thought of that you really want to talk about, but let me run through these and then we can just sort of open up the floor. So one of the things that we would really be interested in knowing is what are the types of outcomes and outputs that the community would like to see coming out of this project? How do you want the port to engage with you and other community members as it's designing and implementing this project? How can grant funds support the Nearport community? Is there a need for new or different community engagement approaches that we should be thinking about over the next few years? What does this community think of partnering with the Port of Oakland on a regional zero emission freight corridor strategy? And to be clear, it's very likely that the ports are going to have, Oakland and Stockton are going to have individual applications, but there would be this sort of connection between the two in terms of communicating the regional approach. What kinds of workforce training opportunities would you like to see? How do you want to be informed about the project as it progresses? And what kind of access would be beneficial for you to see and experience the equipment and the infrastructure as it's rolled out? So I see Doug's hand up, unless Julia, did you want to do the facilitation? Otherwise, maybe start with Doug.
Yeah, okay, I'm just reading off what you have been what you've been saying. What can we do to have a connection with the community?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what triggered me as be part to see that the development of the Port of Stockton is having a cruising on the boat, and on the boat, and also having a bus tour or a shuttle tour around the Port of Stockton as well. I mean, that is a very good way of getting people to be part and being a part of an activity with the Port of Stockton. I think that's something that people would like to see that happen.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that will bring community together and get educated and get them information and get them understand the history of the Delta and all those things that really entice people in that area of information, and how the port has gone a long way from having an electrical thing modernized. So I definitely think that need to be worked on and developed soon. Because right now we're in the springtime now, we're in summer now. We already made like 3 years, and we haven't found anyone who have a permit to have a boat to shuttle people on the Delta. And that's really sad, So I think Stockton should be able to buy their own boat, and that way they save money for their bucks instead of paying somebody else's to navigate somebody else's, the public. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good suggestions. Thank you. Any other thoughts on the project concepts? Any of these questions that are on the screen? Margot.
I really like that you're thinking of partnering with the Port of Oakland on this. And I know it would be 2 separate projects, but collaborating together is so important, and it makes sense. So I think that's great.
Can I ask a question? Do the community groups, do you have any connections to some of the community groups in the Oakland area? Are there conversations that happen across the ports like that from the community perspective?
Well, the Sierra Club is active in the Port of Oakland, and Miss Margaret, who's been forever active in Oakland, is well known by people. So we have connections there. We're not in
Okay.
frequent contact.
Okay, that's great.
Oh, hey, this is Kyle with Carb. I might be helpful in this regard too, and sort of connecting in a sort of oblique way through, my own coworkers, like the West Oakland community, for example, has its own equivalent version of me as a carb liaison, so like I can help facilitate some convos through that too.
Okay, that'd be great. And Stockton and Oakland have worked together in the past on zero emissions projects. Both of them were part of a big CARB grant, actually, with the Port of Long Beach to deploy zero emissions equipment. So there is some foundation for these two ports to be working together.
Yeah,
Davis?
we
Oh,
regularly
sorry.
have communication with them and with all the ports. We're trying to do a little bit better job of kind of sharing lessons learned and information on a regular basis. And we do that through some of the organizations that we're all a part of, but also I think lately it's really been outside of that. And one recent example is between the Port of Redwood City and the Port of Hueneme. We've been having some conversations about workforce development opportunities. So yeah, it's not a foreign concept, and we're trying to get better at it.
Davis, before I jump to you, there's a comment in the chat or a question from Hector about the number of trucks that travel between the Oakland Port and Stockton. I don't have the number offhand, but the Department of Energy just released a zero emission freight corridor study, and we can get that link and send it out to folks that highlights the volume of trucks on the different freight corridors. And there are connections, there are freight corridors that have been identified. So we do know there are trucks that travel between Stockton and Oakland. And to your second question, drayage is a challenge for every port in the state of California right now. So in some ways, having a partnership between two ports might actually help that, having two ports that are working actively on the drayage problem. But yes, everybody is having that issue. Davis, and then I'll go to the next comment in the chat.
Thanks. I one question and one comment.
The first is that Daniel, I think you said at the beginning that there's other funding that the port is looking at for cutting emissions from rail transport. I would love to learn more about that, whether this is the time or place.
It's just for additional trackage at the port.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, on a very quick review of this grant, I saw that rail is included, or at least planning around zero emission rail, and I was just wondering if that's something that's come up at all.
Or is Davis cutting out?
Oh, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, it might be you, Jeff. The question was around, so zero emission locomotives are eligible. Are you able to hear us, Jeff?
Good. Yes.
Okay.
I can now.
Okay. So yes, the answer is yes. Zero emission locomotives are an eligible category. And Jeff, remind me, I think you did you have some conversations with the short line rail?
We have had conversations with Short Line Rail, and actually the Air District has funding that I know that they're working with the Central California Traction Company on to get at least one new ultra low emissions locomotive. I don't know exactly where they are. I kind of left them to it, but I probably need to poke both of them to find out where they are. I know they're in transition of leadership on the Central California Traction side, so that may have delayed things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious because it seems like there's a lot of money on the
table, and if there are any gaps still in rail planning, seems like a good thing to apply for.
I know
but
that
glad to
Central
know that
California Traction has had they tried to be an early adopter on some new technology years ago, and it really hurt them. And so I think they're a little hesitant, but we're trying to work with them and inform them about new technology that's come around. And yes, Mary Elizabeth, Central California Traction is AB 617 funding, I believe.
Cool. Okay, and then
oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Davis. I was going to jump to Hector's question in the chat, but go ahead, finish.
Oh, I just had one other comment. I agree with Margot. I think that partnering with the Port of Oakland
makes a ton of sense. And I was wondering if y'all have been in communications with Ava Community Energy, or if you're familiar with Ava Community Energy.
I am not.
Yeah. Did it used to be called like East Bay Community Energy? Did it recently change its name?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So Ava,
yeah.
oh, okay. So you've talked to them a little bit, because I know that they've been doing a lot of like heavy trucking electrification planning, and they just became we're going to be starting service as Stockton for energy procurement with them, I think in like April 2025, and then the city of Lathrop as well, and then San Joaquin County BOS just voted last week to join too. So because that's the energy provider or the default provider for a huge swath of, like, I think it's like 15 cities in the East Bay and now potentially all of San Joaquin County, and they're pretty heavy duty electrification focused. Seems like they might be also a pretty good entity to be collaborating with on the like port to port regional like freight corridor electrification.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We haven't talked to them in relation to this project, but I'm familiar with them from some work in Oakland that I was working on. Okay, that's
I'd
great.
say if helpful, I'm on the community advisory committee there representing
Stockton. Happy to help make
Oh,
any
okay.
roads and yeah, provide my background.
Okay.
Davis, could you put a link in the chat?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be helpful.
Okay, I want to go back to Hector had a question about a plan to set policy in place to force the switch to EVs. So the state of California has a number of regulations that are coming up that actually, starting this year, for some of the source categories, there are requirements to go to zero emissions for trucks, locomotives, eventually, many types of hovercraft. So lots of CARB regulations that are coming down the pipeline that are forcing that. And then the port's clean air plan also has a number of strategies for the port with its own fleet to be moving to zero emissions for its fleet of light duty vehicles, medium heavy duty, and then also the cargo handling equipment. And then let me just get to Hector's next question about the written comments. I'll defer to the port on that, but one thing I will say is that we are up against a huge time crunch getting this application pulled together. So we're really trying to kind of have the project pretty much gelled by the end of this month, beginning of May at the latest, so we can write it and package it, and there's still a lot of work to do. But Jeff, what are your thoughts on the written comments?
Yeah, Hector, if you guys could get it to us, I mean, fairly quickly, because we're having conversations with the Port of Oakland regularly. We're all trying to get everything dialed in. But yeah, I mean, yes, the answers, we'd be happy to accept written comments. I hope we could get them in time that we could incorporate them into our application.
Margot?
Yeah, I'd just like to second SB's suggestion for a microgrid. I know that Rough and Ready Island has some cleanup still to do and such, but there's a lot of space there. So I just, I hope that stays in mind. And I don't know how that would be shared with the community if possible, but food for thought. And again, Ava Energy might be looking at places to locate microgrids.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
What Margot stated, we actually do work with a lot of solar organizations. And that's one of the things that I know for a fact, like the grant that you all are applying for, that would be helpful and it would be innovative for our community members to be able to receive the benefit of a microgrid. And I'd be more than happy to put you in contact. I actually did do a modeling certification course. We're part of it in a class out of Arizona State University. So that is something that I think would be great for us to be able to do. And it would be, have a community benefits component for clean energy, especially since we do have a peaker plant in Tracy, and, the port taking the lead on this, I think would be, it would be definitely, flagship status. I'm not sure what the status is currently with Los Angeles. I know that they were doing something along those lines, but I'm not sure if it included a microgrid.
Okay, good. Anything else? I'm looking to see if there's any hands up. So one thing that we do need to do, we take all this feedback, synthesize it, identify what project components make sense for this application, and then we also have to validate what's eligible. It's a fairly narrow list that the EPA has put out there in terms of what's eligible for funding. So some of like the microgrid, I'm trying to remember, we'll have to go back and look to see whether something like that is eligible for funding as a part of this project. But all of these ideas, we will take them back and, go through the grant notice of funding opportunity, see what's eligible, and then make sure that this feedback is reflected in the project that we put forward. Any last thoughts, comments?
Anything on the workforce development side or community engagement side that anybody wanted to comments on?
Well, this is Margot. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to comment on that because I think there's some, I don't know. Do you know the USS Lucid, Jeff?
Yes.
And I was on a tour yesterday with them, and John Van Hoosty coordinates efforts with the students at that school where it's located with mentoring on all the different opportunities that it offers, like electrical, plumbing, fire, and his students are also in construction and building and solar and many different things. And it just seemed like such a unique change to our community. It was good to hear, good to see. And I know these are often second opportunity students, but the enthusiasm there was contagious, let me just say. And they mentor them, they follow them, they encourage these students, and they move forward. And I think a connection there would be might be a really good opportunity.
Okay. No, that's helpful. And just you just made me think of the comment earlier about the boat. We've been trying, I know that I've mentioned before, to find somebody to offer boat tours. Unfortunately, our past connection passed away. And I was just down at the docks just last week, seeing if there were any of the boats. I mean, there are big boats sitting over there, and to see if anybody's available to do harbor tours for us. And they just, nobody wants to go through the Coast Guard certification to be able to do that. So, and the port is not in a position right now to be able to buy a boat to be able to support that type of effort, even though we would love to at some point. But we could potentially work out, regular bus tours, which I think, honestly, having been on both numerous times, I think the bus tours can actually be a little bit more informative. You see a lot more things firsthand, because when you're sitting on the water, you're kind of low. So I just wanted to address that, but we are always looking for opportunities to be able to provide a little bit more visibility of the port and more information of the port. So we will definitely put effort into making that more of a possibility.
And one thing I'll point out, we don't have to have everything figured out by the time we submit this application. It's going to be impossible. This application is designed, the project is designed to be over the next 4 years. So these discussions can continue and should continue, right? We just want to be able to frame up, like, where are we going to start having these conversations? Like, if workforce development is a very strong priority for this community, then we need to make sure that that's a part of the project and that we're committing to do that work to figure out what those strategies might look like. So this is really the start of the process, which is good. We're just trying to frame it out. SB?
So with the workforce development part of it, besides what I had stated in the comment, I think that also, and I think the Port of Los Angeles might have been doing this for a while. And I think, Jeff, you mentioned it with regards to the integration, like with the high school piece of it. So besides the students or the folks in terms of, like second chance or like hard to employ, if we had something set in place, with County Office of Ed or with the school district, that would be beneficial for students. And then, also maybe with Delta College, if, doing some kind of, certification in the different components that you all are putting into the grant. And like you said, to add, for future reference as, other monies become available, because I think we need that, the opportunities at all those different levels, from the engineers to the people who are going to be working, on the ground as technicians. And that way we're not, bringing folks from the outside. We're developing that workforce development. So, anything that I could do to help to, as far as like, communication with the community, what have you, we're more than willing to help out, because I think that's critical, because then we keep our folks, here, and then we're able to, like, if they, even though those, like we said, that go into, maybe to more of the advanced degrees and getting those back to the community. So, so again, anything that I can help with outside of the scope of, the organization, I'm, heavily involved UC-wide with the Chicano Latino Alumni Association, and locally with the Cal Club San Joaquin. So I'm just putting it out there. I'll help with anything that I can. Thanks.
That would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have tried like heck to get Delta College involved. I thought we were headed down a good path, and then they kind of fell off the ends of the earth. I'm not sure exactly what happened. But yeah, I think we've got a fairly good path, but I'm always open to bringing in others as well.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And there's a couple comments in the chat that I've been taking down notes that, internships, different kinds of, we can request grant funds for a lot of these types of things. So, understanding what the community wants to see, and then we can request those funds from EPA. Jeff, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, along that same line, perhaps engage and invite the Cal Maritime Academy out of Vallejo out to meet with the high school students and so forth, and introduce them to the opportunities on the maritime side of the port activities. And opportunities at sea and so forth. They also have great logistics programs as well.
That's a great
Yeah.
that's a great thought, Jeff, especially if we can do this global logistics thing to have Cal Maritime come out at least once or
And
twice
they have
during
a
the
very
program.
aggressive scholarship program as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's great.
It's a really good school. Yeah.
And that might be a nice connection with the Port of Oakland too, because I know they're pretty, active throughout the whole Bay Area. Maybe there's some sort of joint program that the two ports could work on in partnership with Cal Maritime.
That would be good. Mary, I'm not ignoring your comment. I will address your comment here once we get through talking about this.
Douglas.
I have a question. I'm a little concerned of how did the Port of Oakland get involved with Stockton at all? I don't see how it could be beneficial collaborating with them when we have different community involvement with our community projects or our nonprofit, and as far as that my concern of Oakland, I've been to Oakland Port when I was young. I used to live in San Leandro, and I've been to the Port of Stockton cruise on it too, and everything else. But as far as I just don't see how Port of Oakland can able to, are we trying to imitate other port, or which is or what? I don't understand what the setup between those two. Thank you.
Yeah, we're not trying to imitate them. We're actually extremely different ports, but we do have some similarities in customers. And in order to take a bigger regional approach to emissions reductions, we think there's some partnership opportunities. So while we will most likely be submitting separate applications, we do want to share the overall goal of reducing air emissions in Northern California.
So are you trying to say that like San Francisco? Are you trying to take it to San Mateo port? Are you talking about LA port? Those are the partners that we want to get involved as well, or what?
We have in the past, but no, not for this one. We think it's the regional approach is something that EPA has kind of highlighted. So we're kind of tailoring our ask to the guidelines in the grant. And I don't know if Jonathan or Renee have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, look, our goal is to bring as much of this money to Stockton as we possibly can. And some of that is thinking about what's going to put together, how can we put together the most compelling, most competitive application. And as Jeff mentioned, the EPA has specifically highlighted the National Zero Emission Freight Corridor effort for this grant program. And so, there are natural connections between Oakland and Stockton that we don't see with other ports, including this high priority zero emission freight corridor. And so part of this is a little bit of, playing the game of putting together a really compelling application with the goal of making sure that we're bringing as many dollars home to the Stockton community as we possibly can. I see Esty has her hand up, and I don't know if that's an old hand or a new hand. Espy?
Sorry, that was old.
Oh,
I just lowered it. Sorry. I had just pulled over because I was driving. So
We see a comment from Davis. They'd like to be involved in the regional zero emission infrastructure planning. Okay. Great.
Jonathan, my colleague from Momentum has also joined. Jonathan, did you have any questions or follow up, or I know you just jumped on.
No, and forgive me for joining late. No questions at this time. I'm just listening in and making sure I record all the feedback we're getting.
Yep. All right. I think this has been really helpful. I have a ton of ideas now. So that's great. Jeff, did you want to say anything else sort of in closing?
Yeah, I will address Mary's comments. She says that she understands there's a community benefit program that the port has developed, but as a member of the community, I have no knowledge of compromises this program. So Mary, we have not, I'm going to turn my camera back on. Hopefully I'm having issues, but we do not have a formal program. So I don't know who you heard that from, but what we have been trying to do is, as projects are coming to the port, we are, urging folks to talk to the community, as Denmark, now Stockton Soda, has done, and through that, we're talking about community benefit. And so a lot of the developers are coming back to the port asking us, what types of things should they be considering? And so we're trying to be a little bit of the go-between, and maybe we could, focus on that maybe in next month's meeting, as far as what kind of projects. So far, things I've talked about are things that we've talked about in depth through the AB 617 steering committee meetings, and urban greening, and zero emission efforts, scholarships, vegetative barriers, things like that. So no, there is no formal program. It's really just port staff trying to provide a menu of opportunities to developers. So does that answer your question?
Sorry, I'm unmuting. I would like to engage a little further with you, because there's some very specific language. We were in a meeting where it was made clear that whatever they decide on will be part of an enforceable lease. So I think that there's certainly some miscommunication. And so you're liaising with these developers may be creating some misunderstanding.
That could be. Yes, one of the only I think I'm aware of the certain aspect you were talking about, and that was, in this specific case, it was to ensure that there was a commitment and there was some enforceability that the port had, to make sure that the community benefits were delivered. But thank you. Yeah, we're happy to follow up additionally. Okay. Well, that was very helpful. No, we really appreciate the information. It was a great discussion. We will definitely take it back. If you think about things further and want to reach out and provide additional feedback to us, we would definitely welcome it. As I mentioned, we are moving forward fairly quickly. Just this grant actually has a little bit longer legs than a lot of them, but in any case, you have to move fairly quickly to develop your grant application. Was there anything else from maybe the port side, or anything in the chat that we did not address? And thank you, Kyle, for your offer to lay liaison for Port of Oakland and the CARB staff over there. Nothing else? Well, then, thank you all so much. We really appreciate your time and effort and energy into helping us develop the best grant opportunity we can for the port to continue to reduce emissions and bring good projects to Stockton. Thank you all. Thank
Jeff,
you.
there's one thing, if you could.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a notice about the cleanup on the 27th that you could email out.
Sure. Yes, yes, we'll do that right away.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
all.
Night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.